Welcome to the Good Growing Podcast. I am Chris Enroth, horticulture educator with University of Illinois Extension, and we've got a different kind of show for you today, folks. Ken and Katie, myself, we were sitting around chatting about cicadas, and we thought, why not make this an episode? So it was recorded, and we cut it together, and so enjoy this episode where Ken Johnson, Katie Parker, and I, and also our producer, Wendy Ferguson, talk all about cicadas. Did you have any cicadas to munch on?
Did not, but for today.
Cicada-licious.
Cicada-licious.
Eat a bug.
We got the bug cook. I think we need to.
You better hide it in something if you expect me to try it.
We need to make a poll.
I don't want to know. I don't want to be able to recognize what I'm eating.
We need to make a poll for the podcast and let people vote if we should do a taste testing. Get some user interaction.
Can you just eat them live? Do you have to cook them?
You can eat anything alive.
Well, yeah.
I don't know if that's a good idea or not. I think all these require
our
you have them
bodies
cooking.
can digest them.
Only one way to find out.
That's true. Chris is horribly sick.
I think as this book says, if you're allergic to shellfish, don't eat insects because they're so closely related.
Oh, really?
Well, that would leave me out. Sorry,
Oh,
guys.
you're darn,
I'm allergic to
Wendy.
shellfish.
Or talk to your doctor first.
I stop breathing if I have any.
Wait,
So.
you can. We can
bring
have
your
an EpiPen. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be ready.
Just stab me
Right. Yeah.
afterwards.
I think this is worth it.
We'll do a precautionary one and then one after.
We'll give you some.
Say this is
Benadryl
what you should have
beforehand.
on hand if you're allergic to shellfish and you're trying insects.
Then Wendy will do a live demonstration.
That is not fun. That epinephrine is not fun. Sorry, guys.
So I am legitimately curious, like what, can you just grab one out of off the ground or a tree and just pop it in your mouth? I guess you can.
It's gonna be all slimy and stuff inside. I mean, if you're a texture person, that may not be a good idea.
Did you?
Most of these recipes I found all for cooking them, and a lot of them are what's the term?
Would their exoskeleton have nutrition to it? It would, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it have like protein? Is that the correct technical term? Exoskeleton?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much would be in there, but
People say that often when they're eating live insects, it's the hooked legs that creep them out the most on their tongue. They feel them like squirming around in there, and that they're like hooking on their tongue. They can feel the stickiness there. So,
but if it was dead, would you still have that issue?
it kind of gets caught in your throat.
Oh,
good.
Like with crickets and stuff that I've eaten, they don't remove the legs, the spurs on the legs. You kind of feels kind of weird going down sometimes. But in this one, they talk about, the best ones are ones that have just molted, they haven't hardened yet. Those are kind of the most desirable. And if you can't get those, then look for females, because the males the abdomens are kind of hollow. Females have all the fat reserves. And then pull off the wings and legs before you eat them.
how do you gender identify cicadas?
Short of looking for the ovipositor, I'm not sure if there is a way.
Is there a size difference between male and female?
See what the Google says.
We'll let Ken look that up. This is the podcast right now, so this is perfect. This is good material. So, Katie, why are we not talking about cicadas really on the podcast or in our area? Why is it not a big deal for us, this whole brood whatever emergence?
Well, they're not supposed to make it over this way, but I was gonna ask Ken, like, what's the magical line? Is it just like because the temperature and stuff from eastern Illinois to western Illinois isn't that different? So why are they just stopping kind of at the Indiana border?
So this brood, that's just the range. It goes from like Washington, D.C. to Eastern Illinois. I think that's just the range for it. Those are 4 counties in Illinois that have it, and they're all on the Indiana border or
Mhm.
relatively close to it. They just, I don't know why they haven't come this far, didn't come this far, but
So, but they're all the same species, right? No matter, they're just separated into different broods.
I think those are 6 species of the periodical cicadas. So I think this time there's 2 or 3 species coming out for brood 10.
Okay. And why did they do this? Why do they emerge in just billions of in mass?
I think the main theory is that you avoid predators this way. If you got billions and trillions of insects coming out all at once, not everybody's going to get eaten.
So
You kind of overwhelm the system and do your thing and die.
and then you ensure your species survival.
As far as why they're underground for 17 years, I don't know if there's any theories as to why that is.
So I have heard tale of climate change playing a role in having broods emerge at different times, different years, maybe not as late. Is that anything that either of you have heard?
I think there's always some early ones that come. I think it's sometimes they come 4 years early, sometimes they come out a year early, and there's always stragglers too from that kind of main brood. Yeah, I don't know if that's climate change. I think sometimes they think that, you know, if you get enough of those showing up real early, that may be the start of a new brood potentially down the line. Probably not in our lifetime, but eventually.
If you look at that map of all the different broods and like when they're supposed to emerge or when they have emerged, it's primarily like the Midwest and then kind of the central East Coast. Like that seems odd to me. Is it too hot further south for cicadas?
Yeah, I'm not sure why they don't go for this. Well, I know this brood there is in Georgia, northern Georgia. I don't know further south if it's a soil thing or the plants aren't suitable. Because they still have your annual dog day cicadas further south.
But in all actuality, are you going to drive to Eastern Illinois, Ken?
I may.
When is the thick of it supposed to be here?
I remember where I read they were thinking the cooler temperatures this last week or so is going to slowing everything down a little bit. So in Cicada Mania, they said May 9th, they've begun chorusing, so singing in northern Georgia. May 8th, they've emerged in Maryland, Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia. So yeah, and then cool temperature over this next week or so should slow emergence until the last 2 weeks of May. Sounds like maybe the peak. And they'll be around for like a month and a half doing their thing.
So Richard and I got an email from the extension internal question thing for lawns, and someone had holes in their yard, a bunch of holes, and this was in Clay or Effingham County. And I did not see the picture, but Richard, he claimed the question and he said, those are periodical cicada emergence holes, which I didn't realize they left like a large hole when they came out. But if there's lots of them, then maybe that could be something you would see.
The pictures I've seen of the emergence holes are like the size of a penny or a dime, like half inch. So they're not terribly large. But yeah, you'll have all kinds of them coming out. Just kind of get pockmarked. Some of the things I've seen. And sometimes they'll build little chimneys when they're emerging too, depending on soil moisture and all that stuff.
Like crayfish.
Yes.
So I've talked to other people and they've said that in terms of flavor, they taste like shrimp or they taste like almonds. I can't think of a more diverse set of flavorings for something, but Ken, have you eaten a cicada before?
I have not. We may have
Katie?
We may have to change this though.
You know, are you willing to eat a cicada? What would you have to do to a cicada for you to eat it?
As long as it doesn't look like a cicada or taste like a cicada.
Okay.
We
So
We ate ants and crickets and cockroaches in 3rd grade.
And you're still alive, and you're still, I'm sure it was a great experience. You'll never forget it, right?
Right.
Yes. So Wendy, who's a producer of the show, she said, put them in butter. I'm willing to do that. Ken, you have a recipe booklet for cicadas. Do you have one picked out for the time when you get to cook up a cicada?
No, there's lots of them in here. I haven't narrowed it down to one yet. So this is from University of Maryland. They made it in 2004. So that was the last time. The last time this brood was out. Brood 10. So yeah, they got lots of good recipes in here. Road trip to Eastern Illinois and get some cicadas and start creating.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Cicada dumplings, tacos, pizza, stir fry, cookies, chocolate
There you
covered
go.
cicadas.
Do they like require
Cicada
that
rhubarb
you
pie.
grind the cicada up, or are they leaving it whole?
I think some of them are grinding them up. Some of them are air frying them.
Sounds interesting.
Is there any food safety concerns here?
What do
It doesn't
cicadas?
not matter.
The cicadas eat.
So I will admit I am not an expert on this, but from what I've read, there's not really concern kind of poisoning wise. Obviously, if you're collecting it from your yard and you spray your trees and stuff all the time, but in systemic insecticides, you're probably going to kill them. But if they do emerge, that may not be a good thing to eat. I've heard with just kind of insects in general, one caution is if you're allergic to shellfish, don't eat them because they're closely related. And some of the recipes and things I've seen is that kind of the best quality ones, the best tasting and kind of easiest eater when they are just emerging. So those adults they're leaving their shells behind on the trees and stuff, and they're kind of soft still. That's kind of the best eating quality. So sometimes you can have dirt on those a little bit. So kind of blanch those and get the dirt off and stuff. And if you collect the adults, remove the wings and the legs, kind of the hard parts. And that improves the eating quality of them. So the Cicada Safari says that they taste like cold canned asparagus.
Yum.
While
Fresh?
they're still white anyway. Good balance of vitamins, are low in fats, and
High
especially the
protein.
females are high in protein. Yep.
Yeah, you can definitely count me out. Asparagus related to shellfish. Yeah, it's,
You don't like asparagus?
oh no. Mm-mm.
Really?
Why would I want to eat something that tastes like grass?
You put some olive oil and garlic salt on it. So if we resorted to eating the cicadas rather than trying to kill them, we could have better control.
You're eating lots of cicadas.
Well, think of
Sure.
everybody in the
Yeah.
US.
I still think we'd have plenty of cicadas left over. Because even like animals, they'll gorge themselves on cicadas, and there's still plenty left to lay their eggs and show up again in 17 years or 13 years, depending on the brood.
So I would say then, in terms of cicada cuisine, I would like, Ken, if you're going out east, could you please prepare us, a couple courses, some savory items. Let's start with something sweet. We'll do a couple savory things, and then we'll finish off with something sweet. And then, if you wouldn't mind pairing a good alcoholic beverage with this, because I don't know if I could do this without that.
Sober.
Yes.
See what I can do for you. I'll have to talk to Ryan and have him let me know when they start showing up around there.
Awesome.
Make
So-
a road trip.
But when we talk about cicadas, we mentioned this earlier about different species and broods, but we have our annual cicadas, right? I know them as dog day cicadas. That's the same, I believe. And is there a visual difference between a dog day cicada or an annual cicada and these periodicals?
Yeah, the periodical, well, they're going to be showing up different times of the year first. Periodical are showing up now. They're kind of black bodies, orange legs and wings, and they have red eyes. And our annual or period or dog day cicadas, kind of a green, brown, black, kind of a camouflage pattern on a lot of them. And they're showing up more July, so more of a summer species. So by the time periodicals probably be gone by the time our annual cicadas start showing up. And they don't live in the ground for 17 years either. I think they're usually 2 or 3 years, but they emerge every year.
And what, like, so obviously in Western Illinois, it's going to be business as usual for us here, but what are folks in like Eastern Illinois, Indiana, and other parts, what are they going to be experiencing when this happens? What is life going to be like for them?
Pure joy.
Says the entomology expert here.
Day.
So I think a lot of people are concerned with trees and stuff, and large mature trees. So that when the cicadas are laying their eggs, though, the ovipositor, they use that to cut a slit in the trees and lay their eggs in there and small branches and stuff. And you can get flagging and stuff on mature trees, but they're big enough that's not going to do any damage. You get some flagging in the tree and they'll be fine next year. Now the big concern is with new trees, small trees and shrubs and stuff, especially if you've planted them within the last year or so or this year. If you get enough cicadas laying eggs in there, you can do some pretty good damage to the trees, and if not, potentially kill them if they're small enough. So if you've done something like that, if you've got newer trees or you've planted trees this year, you want to get some netting on there. Make sure that netting is small enough that cicadas can't get in. Net those trees and then secure that netting to the trunk so they can't crawl up. And you're probably gonna need to leave that on till mid-June or so. If you're thinking of planting a tree and you haven't done it yet, wait until after they're gone.
Fall's a great time in Illinois. So
yeah. And then depending on the number of cicadas you have around you, it could get a little noisy on you too. If you think, I mean, individually, they're not terribly loud, but when you get thousands or millions of them calling at the same time, make a noise. I've personally never been in an area where they've come out, but I've heard you can hear them indoors if there's enough of them. So maybe invest in some.
So it's not
Well,
like you're going to be driving down the road and see swarms of them.
Maybe if you're in like a forest area or a place with a lot of trees, you may, but yeah, I feel like you're on the interstate and there's no trees nearby, you're probably not going to see any. And the number you have is going to depend on obviously where you live in the state. If you live in an area where they're going to be, if you live in a new development, you're probably not going to have any, because if there were trees there when they were last out and they cut everything down, there's nothing to support those populations if you have real small trees. Or if you were in a new development when they were out last and there were no trees or not much there to support those populations, they're not going to be around. But if you're in a kind of an older part of town where you have large mature trees, more than likely you're going to have a better chance of having these cicadas show up.
Yeah, because one of the unfortunate processes of many residential developments is to clear cut all the trees and then build the houses and then replant the trees. So yeah. So if I would plant a tree, maybe I have a newly planted tree right now, I'm going to put a net over it, like some type of insect netting. Will the female, like, am I ever going to get like any larvae feeding on those roots, or I'm going to need some mature trees nearby? So I'm just curious, if I do this now, in 17 years, that tree's going to be bigger. Will it be supporting cicadas then?
If there's trees nearby that they could lay their eggs in, because they're laying those eggs in those tree branches or shrub branches, if they're nearby, there's probably that potential, but there's nothing nearby for them to lay their eggs. I wouldn't think you're going to have cicadas 17 years from now. And when they first lay those eggs, they'll hatch out, they'll fall to the ground. They'll probably start feeding on turf roots, something like that, smaller roots. And as they get larger, they'll move to larger tree and shrub branches. And you can have hundreds or probably thousands of them feeding on a tree, and they're not doing much. I mean, they're in the ground for 17 years. They're not developing terribly fast. They're not removing a lot of nutrients. So it's that those nips feeding on your trees aren't going to really affect them much.
So we kind of know the territory of the broods. Is there any reason that people need to report sightings of cicadas? Is there an agency or organization, if that's the case, that people can report this to? So I figured, I mean, has entomologists established the territories, or are we learning, kind of evolving those territories over time?
I think they're refining them over time. I think it's cicadasafari.org. There's a website or app you can download that if you live in an area where they're not kind of supposed to be emerging, or they haven't been recorded emerging from, they're encouraging people to go there. If you live in an area where they're not mapped to be, submit that so they can kind of refine those range maps for the different broods.
Okay.
There's one place I've heard of. There may be other places doing it as well.
It seems like there's more just human beings connected with each other with our phones, and so like that citizen science data, these maps, these range maps probably will change, like you mentioned, over time as we get more accurate reporting data. So for the most part, us here in West Central Illinois, we don't need to worry about this. If you do happen to fall in the like 3, 4, or 5 easternmost counties that are bordering Indiana here in Illinois, if you're there and you're going to expect some really loud days, probably possibly nights. To cicada, are they day and night? Do they sing in day and night? I can't remember. I try not to stay up late anymore.
That's a good question. I'm not sure if the periodical, if they're out singing at night or if it's just day.
So it's going to be noisy.
Somebody will have to report back.
Yes. So people out there, let us know. Stay up till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Let us know how loud, if it stays loud. I remember so we had periodical cicadas emerge, was at 2014 in Knox County, where I'm at, and driving on the highway, I'm windows up, music on, and I listen to classic death metal. So it's loud and in your ears. I'm kidding. I couldn't stand that. But loud music, I can still hear them as I'm driving down the road. And it's like they come in waves, there's like these clusters that seem like they were, and you're right, in forested areas. So it's going to be noisy. I hope people are ready for that.
Enjoy it. It only happens every 17 years.
Yes. And take a bite out of one while you have that opportunity as well. Let us know if it tastes like shellfish, shrimp, or almonds, because I want to know. And if I don't have to do that study, I'd be happy to just learn from you.
We're going to do it.
Okay. All right. We have a meeting in Springfield coming up this summer. So Katie, if you want to come along, we'll take a trek and eat some cicadas.
Sounds like a plan.
Don't sound so excited. Say if you're living in an area outside of those 4 counties and you feel like you're missing out, 2024 is going to be a big year. There'll be 2 different broods coming out in Illinois. So a 13-year brood and a 17-year brood.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is going to be awesome.
Man, between cicadas and solar eclipses, Illinois has got it. We have got everything you need here.
And if you're not living in Illinois, make sure you move to Illinois by 2024. So you can experience it too.
That's our way to get people back to the state.
Mm-hmm. You get to experience the wonderful world of cicadas and the solar eclipse, and just the wonderful weather that we have here. It's not hot at all. It doesn't get too cold. It's beautiful here.
It is.
And this podcast never lies.
Moved back here from Florida, so.
Oh yeah, from Florida. Goodness. And Wendy's saying all 4 seasons in one day. I have experienced that. Those are great days. Those are the days you wind up with a cold afterwards. So, here's something. What about predators of cicadas? Are we going to see, like, in these areas where they're coming out, are we going to see then an increase next year of predators? Because I'm thinking of the Cicada Killer which something that we always get phone calls about, because that's a hornet like, 2 to 3 inches long. Is that something where, we're going to have so many cicadas that then all of their predators, we're going to be seeing a huge population boost from them in the following seasons?
I'm not sure if cicada killers are going to be out yet.
Ooh, because they coincide more with the dog day cicadas.
Right. There's a professor that if you want to, Kritsky, the entomologist, if you decide to eat cicadas, he wants you to send him a picture first.
Cool.
We could get our picture put on Cicada Safari.
Do they Photoshop safari hats on us?
So it looks like, so in West Virginia, they did a study in 1989 on burrowing activity for cicada killers, and that doesn't pick up until August. So I know cicada killers will be out.
Okay.
Which kind of makes sense why come out early, because you never know when they're going to come out.
Well, I'm excited about the cicadas. People think they're terrifying looking. I think they're kind of cute with those big giant red eyes, red veins in the wings. Not horror movie at all.
No. Beautiful.
It's beautiful creatures.
So here's something from Ohio State. So the sound of the calling cicadas has been measured at over 100 decibels, which is equivalent to listening to a revved up chainsaw held around 3 feet from your ears.
Noise above 70 decibels for a prolonged period of time will start to damage your hearing. So maybe it's like an audiologist's scheme so that we all have to get hearing aids afterwards.
The audiologist and the entomologist team up.
Uh-huh.
They get people interested in cicadas,
Big
and
bangs.
they both win.
Don't worry about your plants, worry about your hearing.
Yeah.
So in that same Ohio State article, so the males have the tymbals, which is the structure they're making the noise with behind the wings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way you can tell male or female, and the females will have ovipositors.
We can link to this Ohio State article because this has a lot of good information. I think we covered almost everything on here.
Cicada Mania is a really good website too, if you haven't seen that one.
Well, that was a lot of great information on cicadas. Ken, Katie, thank you so much. I think we have enough here to cut together a fun episode about these interesting insects. So thank you for humoring me today and letting me chat with you about these bugs.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure.
It was fun. Get ready to eat some cicadas here in a couple weeks.
I will start fasting just for this event.
Excellent. Let's do this again next week.
And we shall do this again next week as we prepare our cicada menu for everyone else. We are going to be talking with Sarah Vogel. We're going to be talking probably about trees. Sarah is a new horticulture educator here with U of I Extension, and so we are going to be diving into some of her interests here, which one of those things being trees and forestry. So we will be chatting with Sarah next week. So listeners, thank you for doing what you do best, and that is listening, or if you're watching us on YouTube, watching, and as always, keep on growing.